Hello and welcome to the President's Podcast right here on the record with the Ohio Senate. The views the news excludes. I'm John Fortney, the Director of Communication with the Senate Republican Caucus. That's the majority caucus in the Ohio Senate. And it is great to have on the program State Senator Brine Chavez, Republican from Marietta, Ohio. How's your summer been?
It's been busy.
Yeah.
It's been busy. We had a very active spring, and it's continued on.
And it's very interesting, too. You're an expert in the oil and gas industry. You're the chairman of the Senate Energy Committee. And, of course, Senate Bill 2 passed unanimously, Republicans and Democrats, this past spring, joining together to pass Ohio's comprehensive 21st century energy bill that passed then with a little bit of change with the House bill, and it's now law. And you were part of the signing ceremony as well outside the governor's mansion. And you can watch the interview that we had with Senator McCauley, Senator Chavez, also Senator Reineke, as that bill was signed. Where are we in Ohio right now when it comes to natural gas energy production? Because I believe you said if you put Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania together, we would almost lead the world in energy production.
Correct. Ohio's in a fantastic position, and as you mentioned, the three states put together, we'd be the third largest producer of natural gas in the world. Behind, number one would be the rest of the United States, and number two is Russia. So I heard the other day, another way to look at it is 25% of the world's natural gas production is in this area here, and that is just mind-boggling to me.
Can you explain where it comes from? Because we'll get into what a production well is versus an injection well, but we're talking about hydraulic fracturing to bring the gas up. Talk about, I guess, the lay of the land or the geography and the history of basically Southeast Ohio into Pennsylvania and West Virginia.
Yeah, so Southeast Ohio, unglaciated Ohio as I call it, is a fantastic example of what oil and gas production can be. So they've been purposely drilling for oil specifically since the late 1860s in Southeast Ohio. They accidentally discovered Ohio, which is the first oil well drilled in North America in 1814. It's a Thorley McKee well in Noble County, and it's a great it's a great state park area. I encourage everyone to go to it. They were actually drilling for salt water. And they would get the salt water out, they would evaporate off the water and use the salt to cure their meats. And then they hit this nasty stuff they thought was oil. And like, oh, yeah, they were disappointed in that. But that well still exists. It's a hollowed out sycamore tree. It is a fantastic look into the history. But they've been purposely drilling in this area, and they've primarily been drilling more shallow because we have a lot of different productive layers here in Ohio, thanks to the geology. And they've been producing from about 1,800 feet, 2,000 feet, the Berea, the Gordon, Cow Run wells. So there's been a lot of production over the years. And they have now discovered, within the last couple of decade or so, the Marcellus and the Utica. They had drilled through that for 100 years and never thought it was productive. Because it is such a solid rock, you have to break it apart to release everything that's in it. That's where hydraulic fracturing came along. It started off as they would create pockets in the well by dropping nitroglycerin down there, causing an explosion, creating a cavern, but it also creates fractures throughout the formation. It's not a big cavern where you just stick a straw in and extract the oil and gas. You have to get it out of the rock. So they were progressing with that, making bigger explosions, and then they discovered through the pressure of hydraulics, you can actually push water out under pressure and split apart the formation. And to do that, you use what is now called fracking fluid. But here, it's nothing fancy, nothing scary. It is water, generally brought out of the Ohio River or some other local water source. But because it's coming straight from the river, it has bacteria and algae and stuff like that in it. So they put a biocide in it because you don't want this water to go into the formation. Down there at depth, it's over 100 degrees, so that would start growing and plugging up your formation. So you put a biocide in it, which is what we put in our soap, hand cleaner, antibacterial. You also put sand in it. The sand acts as a scouring agent, so as it goes out into the formation, it creates little channels, and it actually stays in the formation as a proppant so that the earth doesn't come back down exactly where it was before. And in order to get that all going down whole where you need it, they put soap in it to slick it up so that it goes out. And so when they say that this is undisclosed chemicals, it's just the different soaps that people are using. So it's the Coke and Pepsi argument. They don't want to give each other their secret formula, but it's basically the same thing. It's Tide versus, whatever other detergent you want to use. But that's all it is. So that goes out in the formation. It splits apart the formation, and they let it sit there for a while, and then they release it back out. So some of that water, not all that water, but just some of that water, which is 99.9% water and 0.5% additives, which I just mentioned, it comes back out. Maybe 25-30% of that comes out. But what it also brings out is ancient seawater. So 350 million years ago, this was all a shallow sea in this area. Over geologic time, it got buried deeper and deeper and deeper. And over the geologic time, that's where we get these different formations. But that bottom formation, as it compressed and was heated, that plant life, algae, anything that was organic in there, it got compressed and heated and turned into hydrocarbons, the oil and gas. So when you extract this fluid back out, it brings the oil, the gas, and the ancient seawater that was trapped underneath there. So you take off the oil, you take off the gas, and then you're left with this ancient seawater.
And that's called hydraulic fracturing or fracking.
That's the fracking process.
That is the fracking process. Some people also get confused because it gets some attention in Ohio. There's always the malcontents, the naysayers, the anti-oil and gas people that sometimes I think confuse the difference between a production well and an injection well. What is the difference, or maybe give a definition of both?
So a production well is what you drill and you hydraulically fracture in order to get the oil and gas to come back out. And that's, as the name implies, you're
what
producing.
You just described.
You're producing, correct. So as I mentioned, you get the oil and the gas, but you also get that ancient seawater. You need to do something with that ancient seawater. So 100 years ago, they would just put it in the river, or they'd put it on the ground. Well, that's not allowed anymore. That's not how we do things in this day and age. So you have to put it somewhere. So the best place to put it is back where it came from, in a water-producing formation deep below the earth, generally over a mile deep. And that's an injection well. You're re-injecting that ancient seawater and some amount of the hydraulic fracture water, which is still the same thing.
But it's more than 5,000 feet deep.
Yes.
Deeper than a mile down. And that's well below, is it not, the aquifers, drinking water, those types of tables?
Yes, so the drinking water aquifers in southeast Ohio, there's nothing deeper than 300 feet. And generally, aquifer, extraction wells for water sources are either they're coming straight from the river, or it's 150 feet deep, a little bit inland. So there's nothing below 300 feet deep.
So when the public, and you see some of the naysayer groups out there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute, but I guess that a key basic question is it safe, and who's in charge of oversight at the state?
Absolutely, it's safe. So if we talk about a mile, so people think a mile, go walk a mile.
5,280 feet.
That is a long way. And imagine that mile is filled with rock, different layers of rock, different densities of rock. But the rules in Ohio are you have to have your injection below at least one, and most of the injection wells are below multiple levels of impervious rock. So the injection wells, the ones in southeast Ohio, are below what they call the big lime. That is 400 feet of limestone that is impervious to any kind of migration. So that barrier's there. There's another barrier above that, plus all this other earth, plus gravity's pulling everything down, and your aquifers are way up at 300 feet. And the aquifers are protected. These injection wells are constructed with more scrutiny and more intensity than probably the production wells. There's at least 5, but sometimes up to 7 layers of steel and concrete protecting that aquifer as that injection well is constructed and moved down.
So there's not a threat then to the drinking water?
No, I don't believe there's a threat at all.
Also, what is brine, I guess? Is that what we're talking about that has shot down the injection well to those real deep depths?
Right. So brine is salt water. We brine our turkeys
Right.
before we
Right.
put them in the smoker. People go to the beach every year and they frolic in brine, which is the ocean. So, as I mentioned, this is ancient seawater that has been compressed and concentrated. It's saltier than the ocean, but that's because it has been concentrated. But it's just ancient seawater.
There's a little group out of Athens County that likes to pose as we're just a grassroots group of good neighbors and citizens who are concerned, and we don't like fracking in Ohio. We don't like injection wells in Ohio. And they pose like they're just your good neighbors. But you do a little bit of digging, and this week you can read the story as part of our introduction to the podcast, written by me, and the title is Ohio Oil and Gas Under Attack by California-Funded Leftists from Athens County. And in fact, guess who they're funded by? There's 4 groups out of California that they are funded by. Resources Legacy Fund out of Sacramento donated $150,000 to them. The Schmidt Family Foundation out of Palo Alto, $100,000. United States Energy Foundation out of San Francisco, $97,500. And the Tides Foundation, which was rather eye-opening, the Tides Foundation from San Francisco donated $105,000 to this little grassroots organization. That's the same Tides Foundation that donated $2 million to the Democratic gerrymandering campaign. That was a $40 million dark money campaign that the voters rejected in November. Why do California special interest groups have an interest in stopping oil and gas and accountable, affordable, and reliable energy generation here in this part of the country?
Boy, I wish I knew, but you're absolutely right. That is incredibly disingenuous. And it's, of course, a lot of these places, they fly around in their private jets. And it's do as I say, not as I do. So that's what's really concerning to me, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, is because the disingenuous information that's being put out there, which, as we say, this is not true, this is not true, that's not true, they don't care. They don't apologize for any of it. They just keep throwing everything up and trying to make a story, and they're scaring people. And the folks don't need to be scared about this.
Right, and when they get a story in the legacy media, obviously the legacy media isn't what it used to be, at least not when I worked in it for 25 years, where you actually did a little background and research into the organizations that come testify, or what they're saying, or trying to generate a story in their local newspaper, and then that gets promoted by that far left-leaning group to try to make it look like it's legitimate. Wouldn't you agree that everybody wants clean air, clean water, and isn't natural gas also clean energy?
Absolutely. It's clean, it's reliable, it's affordable. And yeah, who doesn't want clean air, clean water? I live in Southeast Ohio. I drink the water, I breathe the air. I'm the last person that wants anything to happen. I've raised my family there. All my friends live there. So to start with the premise that someone's trying to get away with something and someone's being just very anti-environmentally sound, I reject that premise. That's completely false. ODNR has primacy to regulate over the oil and gas industry here in Ohio, and that means that they have been certified by the federal EPA that ODNR's rules here are as strict or more strict than the federal guidelines. ODNR regulates the injection process and the injection wells more strictly than I believe they do the extraction and production. There are unannounced visits once a month, once every 6 weeks. There's pressure monitoring. There's all kinds of things that are done that you can't circumvent the system. So they are keeping a very good eye on it. The last thing that an injection well owner wants is for there to be a problem. Last thing the ODNR wants is for there to be a problem. So everyone is keeping a tight eye on it.
So not only is safety the priority, and it's enforced strictly, would you agree, from the state of Ohio? It's enforced strictly.
Absolutely.
But you talked about drop-in visits, and this is all by the book, where it wouldn't be permitted in Ohio.
Right.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. Now, people can point to maybe some bad actors, but that's not what's going on. The rules are very stringent. When the inspector comes to look at the injection well, there's pressure monitors and pressure trip gauges on the pumps. The inspector will take off those gauges that's on there by the operator and put on their own gauge just to verify. So it is a very strict scrutiny going on here.
You talked about the level of impervious rock. So we get back to the allegation is, oh, it's seeping, it's leaking, it's migrating into our aquifers that are several thousand feet above where the brine is injected. What's your message on that about any type of migration, seepage, leakage? I mean, this is a pretty airtight process.
It is so well constructed. As I mentioned, there's 5 to 7 layers. So each layer, as they put in a large piece of pipe, they will put cement down that pipe and then up the backside and cement it to surface. So then it's done with the next layer of pipe, next layer of pipe, next layer of pipe. So eventually, as you get what we call the long string, which will be the casing, let's say it's 5.5-inch casing, that goes all the way to the bottom, and then you put cement all the way in that and down the middle of that and push it back up the backside, so the entire casing is encapsulated in cement all the way up to where it ties into the upper layers of cement protection, cement and casing protection above it. Then what you do is you put in tubing, so 5.5, let's say 3-inch tubing. You put all that, put that tubing all the way to the bottom, but on the bottom of that you have what they call a packer. So it's a very hard rubberized element that seals off between the tubing and the casing. So that's set on the bottom, and it's locked in, and then it's pressure tested. It's overpressured. So they look to make sure that that doesn't leak at all. So the only way water can go is down to the very bottom where you're intending for it to go, and then out into the formation from there. So there, I didn't mention any cement of the tubing. That's because you have a annulus space in between the casing and the tubing. They monitor that pressure. The injection wells and the state monitors that pressure very closely, looking for any kind of deviation. If it goes up, it goes down, then that's automatically a signal to shut down the well and look for a leak in possibly the tubing or maybe the packer is leaking a little bit. So everything is so tightly monitored that the water can only go into the formation where it's designed to go, which is below these impervious layers, which is over a mile below any fresh water.
That's super interesting. Looking back, if I could have done the math, petroleum engineering would still be really a great job.
Absolutely.
Anywhere in the world, but specifically right here at home too.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about, some people, you hear about this on a different topic about, Senator Reineke for an example about out-of-state trash coming into Ohio. What about out-of-state brine coming into Ohio? What are the rules and regulations on that?
So it is allowed to come in, but the argument is trying to make this seem like it's something different than what it is for in-state brine. It's still the same ancient seawater. It's still the same formation, whether it comes from Pennsylvania or West Virginia or Ohio. It's all the same water. It's regulated as closely. Ohio has the geology. It's blessed to have the geology to be able to take this ancient seawater where other states don't have the geology to put it into a formation that's non-productive. They don't want to put it into a productive formation because then you ruin your oil and gas extraction. There are over 180,000 injection wells in the United States. Ohio has 200 of them. So when you say Ohio's the dumping ground of the nation, that's not true. That's just, again, more misinformation that's out there. There's been injection wells in Ohio since the 1960s. It's not a new process. Mm-hmm. It's a safe process.
My grandfather worked in the oil fields in Noble County many, many years ago. So, and I even used to pump an oil well off of Route 7 that we used it, believe it or not, the natural gas to heat the farm. So I guess now we know the difference between a production well and an injection well. What is the production of the production wells as far as natural gas in Ohio? Because we've seen some stories out there about, oh, my electric bill just went up, a little bit. But of course, that gets into the whole PJM, which is kind of the wholesaler of aggregate energy in Ohio. There is going to be a bit of a lag, but where are we right now producing natural gas? Is it ramping up? Are we doing the right things? And is Senate Bill 2 making a difference already?
Yes, so Senate Bill 2 started with the premise of electrons are important, and how do we get those electrons? You build power generation. Where do you want to build power generation? Right on top of the fuel source. So we're blessed with having all the natural gas, all the coal, all the water, all the resources that we need to build those power plants right here. So that's the vision of Senate Bill 2, which House Bill 15 ultimately enacted, was to encourage that. So we want to, in terms of the production, I think the production is steady and growing a little bit to the natural gas. There's the technology is always improving, the efficiency is always improving. The exciting thing is the oil production is also increasing. As they're moving to different areas of the Marcellus-Utica play, they're finding more and more oil. So we have so much potential here in this area that will absolutely enhance our economy because we have the workforce, the economy, the natural resources. It's all right here. And that's what House Bill 15 was encouraging.
And I know when we had Congressman Balderson on with Senator Landis a few months ago on the President's podcast, Senator Balderson and Senator Ruley, who was recently on the podcast, were talking about trying to speed up generation projects, getting the natural gas-fired plants on the ground and up to speed and online faster than the 7 to 9 years that it had been taking. So a lot of those generation power plants, natural gas power plants, you would hope would be here in Southeast Ohio.
Absolutely. I would like to overbuild the generation because, as you mentioned, PJM is the regional transmission organization that we're a part of, which is 13 states. So we generate power here, Pennsylvania generates power, West Virginia, but we have a lot of states that are just drawing power away from us. And they're making some bad decisions on how they want to approach their futures in their state in terms of electric generation. So Ohio, I think, has taken the bold and insightful vision to say, no, let's build the power generation here so that we can take care of our state. We can encourage economy to come here to our state where the source of the electrons are, because it's the source of where the fuel is. It's cheaper to build it here.
Yeah, it's reliable, affordable, and it's accountable, and also we have water here as well, so business and industry can come in. And also part of Senate Bill 2 was allowing some of these major users, these like data centers, the ability to have their own kind of power plant on site as well. I guess as we wrap up, bottom line from you and all your years in oil and gas, and you're an expert in the industry, are injection wells safe?
Yes, they are safe. Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. I live there. I drink the water. I have no concerns.
Senator Brine Chavez, Republican out of Marietta, chairman of the Senate Energy Committee. Thanks for your time. Insightful as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, John.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.